Welcome to this session of Win-Loss Week. Joining us on this session is Austin Bankhead, the president of Unicorn Revenue Operations. And he's going to be talking to us about the 5 keys to building an effective win-loss program. We're really excited for this session. Austin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Trenton. Thanks for having me back again. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Today, I'm going to talk about, as Trenton mentioned, 5 keys to building an effective win-loss program. And thinking about this topic, I really have one primary audience in mind, and that is people like myself that are in revenue operations or in sales operations. If you happen to be listening to this and you're thinking, I'm not in either of those functions, that's great. I think you would benefit from staying on, because the odds are, if you're interested in win-loss and you want to help support and build an effective program, your counterparts or your colleagues in sales operations or revenue operations are going to be a key partner with you to have a successful win-loss program. But my comments and the direction of my the angle I'm taking today is really directed to sales ops professionals that help them build the program or support other teams in doing so. Today, I'm going to cover 5 topics. Briefly, I'll talk about me and Unicorn Revenue Operations, just so you have an idea of my background and the angle that I'm taking in win-loss programs. We'll talk about why sales ops often fails with win-loss. And this is an important realization that I see over and over with my clients and in my my experience working in companies, is there's just certain things that sales ops professionals might not fully consider or be aware of that really can doom a win-loss program or certainly make it less effective. So I'll cover those and sort of set the stage for the third item, which is really where we'll spend most of our time today. And that's really the keys to building an effective program. And I'll walk through those keys in some level of detail, so you as a sales or revenue operations professional have some very tactical and tangible ideas of what you can do to make your company's win-loss program more successful. We'll then spend a few minutes talking about 3 or 4 common obstacles that you might run into, not of your own making, but throughout the organization, that you need to push through to build a sustainable program. And then lastly, we'll just talk a few minutes about where and how you can learn more about building a successful win-loss program if you have interest. So with that, let's jump into the meat of the slides. Just a bit about me. I've spent the last 20 years in B2B sales and marketing, the last 10 to 12 of which have been really focused in directly helping sales teams or running revenue operations. I currently run a consulting firm called Unicorn Revenue Operations. We serve clients in fintech, software, medical device, and a range of business services, helping with all aspects of revenue operations. My clients sell to SMBs, they sell to mid-market, they sell to enterprise, and we advise again on territories, CRM, pre-post sales process, win-loss interviews, etc. So kind of a nice mix of work. Prior to that time, I built a sales operations team at Snap, which is a unicorn financial services fintech company. I spent 6 years at Qualtrics building sales operations, some elements of the marketing function, as well as channel partners and M&A integration. So I had a nice mix of experience really working and supporting with sales the entire time of my Qualtrics tenure there. Prior to that time, I worked at Adobe, at Omniture, and a few other companies working with B2B sales teams. So some of the advice I'm going to give today is much of it's related to my work at Qualtrics, Snap, and my current client base, but really giving some context with over 20 years of experience working in the B2B environment. So hopefully, some of the things I'll say today will resonate and will be credible for you and help you be more successful in building a win-loss program. Now, if you're listening to this presentation and engaging in Win-Loss Week, you are obviously believing or want to understand why win-loss is so important. And I think the data and it's an industry best practice, data shows that these programs, when effectively run and administered, can create a lot of value across the organization. And these are 5 areas where win-loss can benefit. Obviously, product design and management, what you put in your products, how do you design them, how do you prioritize into your product roadmap, what is really going to move the needle and help you win more deals and close bigger deals. Marketing function, especially product marketing, really craves and needs information and insight about how customers and competitors and prospects are engaging with your product. So marketing positioning, obviously a lot of those insights are important to train and onboard and help enable your salespeople so they can be more effective. And they're clearly a beneficiary of a program. Your competitive intelligence can be boosted and enhanced by insights from win-loss. And then even things like pricing and packaging. And your price points and your discounts and how you negotiate with vendors, with customers and prospects, all of these things can be informed and improved from an effective win-loss program. So the stakes are high to get this done right and to generate value for your company. And it's also, the stakes are very high for you as a sales operations professional, because and I have lived this many times. Sales operations or rev ops can be seen as a little bit of a back office or a subsidiary function in the revenue organization. And win-loss is one of the relatively few ways that you can, as a sales ops professional, can stand up and lead a very visible and highly value-added function in your company and have a seat at the decision table, not only in the sales organization, but in the revenue organization, and even more broadly than that. So I really encourage you, if you're in sales operations, to think carefully about how you might leverage win-loss for your company success, but also for your professional success yourself. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the gloomy stuff here, just to set the stage. I myself have been in a case where when I first started looking at win-loss, did not appreciate how to build a successful program. And so I had a few stumbles to figure this out. And since I've started in working with Unicorn Revenue Operations, I've seen many clients have a semblance of a win-loss program that's really not architected and set up to really reach its potential. And there are usually 5 reasons why, and I'd like to go over those. The first is, our knee-jerk reaction to sales ops professionals is, hey, I'm just going to ask my sales reps and maybe my managers why we lost or we want a deal. This is a tragic blunder. Our reps and our managers can provide insight, and we should find out what they think happened. But as we'll talk about later, they are just fundamentally not equipped or positioned to provide the insight that you need. But they're easy to ask, and it's convenient, and it's cheap. And so we tend to start there, and we often end there. And that's the first most common mistake. The second is that we don't clean and leverage our CRM data to help us be strategic in how we do win-loss. We'll talk about this more, but we don't have a good insight as to what deals we've truly lost, where the areas of focus need to be, or where our areas of opportunity, because our CRM data is a mess or not well set up. Now, I have been in sales ops for a long time. I empathize heartily with the challenge of having good CRM data. It is a non-trivial task. And so I don't want to say this lightly, but you really need to think and be careful and thoughtful about using your CRM data to really set the strategic direction, as well as some of the tactical realities of having a successful program. And in sales ops, we often just, we don't really get the ball over the finish line on this. The third common challenge that I see is that win-loss is seen as a project or an episodic program rather than a strategic function that we do on a regular basis to create value for our revenue teams. And this can be a function of we don't have enough resources, we're not sure how to do it, or we may stumble, or we don't have a lot of success, so we sort of suspend or abandon the effort, or something other fire drill comes up. And so it just becomes, it never really gets off the ground, and thus we can't reach our potential. The fourth reason, we'll talk more about this, is we fail to get broad-based support. We're excited about it, we actually get some insights, but whether it's in the sales organization or throughout the company, we really don't get the traction to help surface the key insights to decision makers that actually can act on them. So we have good insights, or we have good information, but not a lot actually happens to translate into greater revenue, better products, better sales enablement, et cetera. And that's because the executives that are key to making those changes happen are not aware sufficiently, or they're not on board. So we don't have the support. And in cases, and we'll talk about the budget to make a program really successful. The last sort of common error that we find that really causes us as sales ops professionals to not deliver the goods is we go through all the effort to get the insights, but we don't really distribute or communicate them effectively. And this can be as simple as we have a report in Salesforce that no one looks at, or we send things to sales leaders that get lost in their email. So we're not very strategic about how we distribute and push those insights to drive value in the company. So those are the 5 things that I see the most, and as a result, our programs fall short of potential. And we as a sales ops function and you as a sales ops leader or manager, you miss a chance to be seen as strategic and have a seat at the table. So if after going through this, any of these points resonate with you directly or resonate with you because you have a colleague that might be in sales ops that might be sort of falling prey to one of these errors, the next few slides are going to be hopefully very helpful for you. We'll talk about how to address these. Okay, 5 keys to building a successful program. The first is to create a steering team. Talk about each of these in more detail. The second, we want to get our CRM data in order. Third, we want to strategically pick the deals that we want to evaluate. And evaluate can be done, that evaluation can be done in many ways, and we'll talk about that in number 4, which is how to use a portfolio approach to extract the truth about why we win and lose deals. And we'll spend probably the most time today talking about number 4 because it's a challenge to get this right, and there are a number of misconceptions that you may have or people in your company have about how to gather the insight from win-loss. And then 5th, we'll talk about how to effectively distribute the insights from this program to drive action and create value. And you'll see that many of these are aligned to the common pitfalls that we run into. I want to warn you that a successful program takes focus and investment. This is not something you sort of just do by the seat of your pants. It's actually not something that you set it and forget it, although there are ways to automate this. But I hope that today, and certainly with some of the other content that you're listening to with Win-Loss Week, you will leave the Win-Loss Week convinced that the value creation opportunity is there and that this is well worth your effort. Okay, let's go to number 1. The first is to create a steering team. You'll remember the slide I showed you a few minutes ago with the 5 green circles that showed the areas that benefit from win-loss. Well, guess what? This is the executives that are in charge of these functions are the people that you need to have support on your steering team. You want to have someone from product. You want to have someone from sales enablement. You might want to have someone from your pricing function that might be in marketing or somewhere else. You obviously need to have a senior sales leader or 2 on the team, but you basically want executive buy-in on the goals of the win-loss program. You want them to care about this. You want to kind of find people that have kind of an inkling or a passion for or an interest in using great insight to drive change and in the company and to create value. In short, they have to give a damn. If they're indifferent, these are people that you'll want to convince later on, but you don't want them on your steering team. You want people that care and are passionate about this and will guide you and provide you support. They might give you advice. They might help secure budget. They will help you distribute insights. They have skin in the game. So this isn't much different from other initiatives that you might see as executive, but you want to have people on your team that have influence and power and that can help you succeed. So this getting to senior level support is critical. The other thing I'll say is, even if it's at the beginning of your program, you want to start with the steering team and it's on a shoestring, you don't have a lot of budget. To run one of these programs at scale as your company grows and you have dozens or hundreds of reps and you have thousands of deals, you're going to need some budget. So having influential people on your team will be very helpful in doing that. So create the steering team. The next thing is something that you know and love very well, and sometimes it might drive you crazy, and that's getting your CRM data to be clean. So many companies I've worked with have a challenge with the first one, which is just to be clear, when do we lose a deal? Usually people have no problem in saying, hey, we've won a deal. That's an easy one. But oftentimes as reps, reps have a tendency to want to change the close date or kick a deal down the road 6 months and don't want to sort of admit that they've lost a deal. Now, there's some downsides to that for your pipeline and forecasting, and that's the subject of a different presentation. But for doing win-loss win-loss programs, which would include interviews, as we'll talk about shortly, you need to have a list of the deals that you've lost. So you have a population from which you can do your research. So if your company struggles, your sales culture is one that struggles in knowing when a deal is lost, you might want to have a conversation with your senior leaders. You want to look at your pipeline so you have a population when a deal is lost. And a loss is not a bad thing. It just means that right now they're not going to buy. They might buy in a year, they might buy in 2 years, they might buy in 6 months, but you need to know why they're not buying now. And so you have to get the deals marked as lost. The second thing relates to the metadata around the deal, and that is having good, accurate data on what industry a company is located in, what geography they might be. Are they in Europe? Are they in Asia Pacific? Are they in South America? Or are they in Southeastern United States? Where are the deals located? What teams are those deals associated with? And what products are those wins and losses associated with? If that data is accurate, you can go and start to analyze and say, where are we losing and where are we winning across these types of vectors? For example, you may find that you're doing very well in financial services if you have an unusually high loss ratio in retail or in e-commerce. Or you may find that a team that is located in a certain area of the country or a certain tier of reps, maybe in your mid-market component, that team has variations outside of the ordinary in terms of where they're losing and where they're winning deals. And it could be they're winning a much higher. You want to know where those things are happening so that you can focus your program to gather insights that would help the rest of the company. You can't do that if your account data is inaccurate. Next, you're going to need to talk to some people in addition to the reps about the deals, and you need to know who made the decision on the deal, what contacts are associated on that deal or opportunity object, depending on your CRM. The last point on number 4 is not a massive deal. It's something that's an issue, but something that you should be aware of, and that is that sometimes there will be deals that are sensitive. For example, it might be a deal that was lost by a senior sales leader in the company, or a deal that was done with a friend of one of the executives. You'll just want to make sure that you're sensitive of any extra political or relationship issues that would warrant a customer not being contacted, or one that is handled with extra sensitivity. So just be aware of those. Occasionally they'll pop up, and the last thing you want is a political issue or a customer relationship issue to cast a pale or sort of damage the reputation of the win-loss program. So just be sensitive on that. The bottom line is that to build a successful win-loss program, you need to have accurate CRM data because that will guide the direction of the next steps that we're going to talk about. Okay, now that you have a steering committee and now that you have great CRM data, we're going to look at what deals we want to focus on for our win-loss program. So as I talked about in the prior slide, we use our CRM data to find problem areas or areas that are going exceptionally well that we want to learn from. Your steering committee will come in very handy at this stage because they all are going to have hypotheses or theories about what could be done to improve the business. Maybe they think your pricing could be improved, or maybe there's a sense outside of the sales team that sales enablement is pathetic and needs to be improved, or maybe they think you need better technical training. So different executives in the company have different theories or hypotheses of how to improve the business. Sometimes they will be spot on and sometimes they will be dead wrong, and sometimes they'll be somewhere in the middle. But knowing what those hypotheses are will help you select deals that you can then train your win-loss program on to go figure out what happened to disprove or approve or at least provide additional data for those hypotheses. You'll want to select a sample of deals that reflects your business mix. Some companies that your company might, for example, sell to a very narrow vertical or just one vertical and a very small set of buyers. And so there's not a lot of changes. Some of you may work in companies where you sell to SMBs, you sell to enterprise, you sell across verticals, you might sell multiple different products. So you should try to get a representative sample of your business mix or where you're trying to sell into so that you can get a good measure of the overall health of your business and be able to inform decisions across your sales and product portfolio. Lastly, you want to think about doing win-loss analysis throughout the entire year. You might have the sense of, oh, we only want to do this in Q1 after we've closed the year, and we're going to pick a handful of big deals that closed in Q4. Clearly, you're going to have a quarter, or most companies do, that's bigger than the others, but you want to go ahead and select deals in a cadence that matches your sales cycle. If your average sales cycle is a month, you might want to select deals every couple of months because you want to keep informing and informing the salespeople and your product people so you can gradually get better. If your sales cycle, you're selling very complicated products, your sales cycle is 18 months. Well, maybe you should do every 6 months, or I usually advise clients to do this on a quarterly basis. Every quarter, I'm going to pick some deals, I'm going to put them into my win-loss program, so I have a constant flow of insights that are relatively close to the time the deal was won or lost that can inform the various stakeholders on how to do better. Okay, we have a picture slide now. This is really the only picture in the presentation, and it's a little grainy, but it is a nice transition to talk about what probably is the most important component of the most important key that we're going to talk today, and that is, how do you find the truth? If you happen to be a Harry Potter fan, which I'm hoping that most of you have at least seen the movies, if not read the books, you might remember this device that Dumbledore had called a pensieve. And the idea, and I'm not a super wizarding expert, is that you can use the pensieve to figure out the truth of what's really happening in someone's brain. So it is a way to extract truth or to see truth. In doing a win-loss program, our goal is to extract truth. We want to find out what really happened. We don't have wizarding powers or serums or other things like that. So we're going to go with the next best thing, which are types of tools that we talk to people. Okay, so here are 6 possible options for us to extract truth about why we won or lost a deal. Number 1 is the most commonly used one, which is we're going to ask the reps. We will just fill out some fields in Salesforce, or we'll send them a survey. And in fact, I was just looking at a client's opportunity object in Salesforce yesterday, and sure enough, at the bottom of the opportunity, there are 4 fields: reason for win, and then an explanation, and reason for loss, with another text box or essay box for explanation, with a handful of drop downs on why we won or lost the deal. And that is so easy to do, and I'm so glad that many companies do that. We'll talk about how effective that is in a minute, but just hold that thought. But that is very common, very easy to do. Sometimes we might, as a sales ops leader or product marketing person, we might actually interview the sales rep and his or her manager on a deal. Why did we win this deal? Why did we lose that deal? Sometimes we use that. That's a little more time consuming, but they're often available for us. We jump on a Zoom, we meet in person. We still do that these days, and we talk to them. Option 3 is someone in the company. Could be someone in the sales team, so it can be someone in product marketing or somewhere else. We actually survey the buyer. We pop up a Qualtrics or a SurveyMonkey survey, and we survey them, and we take that and we put it back in Salesforce, or we do some analysis on it. Or we may actually set up an interview, and we prepare an interview guide, and we contact the buyer, and we talk to them for 30 to 60 minutes and ask them a series of questions. Then we collate and we synthesize and try to extract the truth that way. Options 5 or 6 are just like 3 and 4, except instead of doing it in the company and having someone that's an employee of the company do it, we actually retain a third party, or I like to say an outside expert to survey or to interview. So those are basically the 6 options that we have. I would like to say that there is one that is a silver bullet, but it turns out that none of these is perfect. They're not all equally effective, and they vary sometimes widely in their cost and also how easy it is to actually do it. So as you think about building an effective win-loss program, one of your decisions is going to be, what is the mix of tools or channels we're going to use to extract the truth, and who are we going to extract the truth from? So I want to pause and just let you assimilate that for a minute. Here are a couple of ways that you can think about this and make this decision. I try to think about it as a 3-question multiple choice test. The first question I ask is, who is the best source of truth? Who is going to know the most about what actually happened? Is it the sales rep, or is it the prospective buyer? My second question I ask is, who is going to be able to extract the most truth? Is it an employee, either someone on the sales team, someone in sales operations, in marketing, legal? I don't know who, could be just about anyone. Or is it an outside expert that does this all the time? Okay. Question number 3, what tool extracts the most truth? And I will give you 2 options. There might be a third. Is it a survey that the sales rep or the buyer fills out that's structured and we try to anticipate the questions and it's kind of standardized? Or is it through a more tailored interview with the sales rep and the buyer? So as you think about those options, I would postulate for you, based on my experience, that interviewing the buyer and having as someone who is a skilled interviewer do that is the best way to get the most truth. Nothing else will beat that in terms of just finding out what really happened. The challenge is balancing other ones like that. So we're going to talk about how to get a mix. Given these realities, I would say that option B is the answer in this multiple choice question every time. Buyer, outside expert in an interview. Let's talk about how to position the other ones in there because we'll need a portfolio approach. I used to work at McKinsey a long time ago, and no presentation by a former consultant is ever complete without a 2x2 matrix. So here's your 2x2 matrix. I hope this works for you. Let me explain what I tried to do with this matrix. On the x-axis is the truth availability factor, which is how much truth is actually available to the person. It's basically between the rep and the buyer. This is low and this is high. And on the y-axis is the quality of the insight that will be able to be pulled from that person between low and high. So as in every 2x2 matrix, the upper right quadrant is where you want to be. And therefore, if you talk to a buyer and you do an interview by an outside expert, that's going to give you the best insight. The worst insight that you're going to get, or the least valuable, is one that is doing a survey or just surveying a rep who, even though they are well-intended, really has little idea about what really happened. And in saying that, I realized that in my prior comments, I didn't talk about why interviewing or surveying sales reps is a limiting factor. And this is really, really important. So it's good that I remembered it at this stage of my discussion. Sales reps are clearly not in possession of all the truth or the reality of why a buyer does or does not choose their product. They just cannot know because they're not in the mind of the buyer. Even if they have a great relationship with them, even if it's their uncle or their cousin or a relative or a close friend, they're never going to know all the truth. They just can't. The other thing is that the sales reps are human, and we as humans are less likely to notice or certainly admit to when we played a role in something and losing a deal, or when we made an error, we goofed up. We're all imperfect. Sales reps are imperfect. The salesperson is unlikely to be able to recognize or realize what happened in all cases. So therefore, a rep just doesn't have the information, and what they have, they may not be able or willing to fully disclose it accurately to you. So that's why talking to a salesperson can be helpful. They can provide information, but they are not a great source. So back to my 2x2 matrix, doing a survey of a rep is going to give you probably the lowest level of information. They may not even respond. So that's another reason. Interviewing reps and managers can give you some information, can give you some truth, and can be useful, but it's hard to do at scale. So that's why I have it kind of placed here. So it's more insightful, but there's just not that much truth that's available, especially across deals. So the bottom line is that all of these have value, but some have more value than others. And in my view, in my experience, having an outside expert actually talk to the buyer or survey the buyer is probably your best way to get insight at scale. So I recommend a combination. Okay, so that's how we think about a portfolio. You need a mix of tools to extract the truth. Okay, last portion of this, and this is effectively distributing findings. Let's assume that you've got a steering committee, you've got your CRM data, you've picked the right deals, and then you've used the right portfolio of approaches to extract the truth of why you won or lost a deal. Now we need to actually distribute the information. So 7 things to think about. The first is simple to say in principle, just tell the truth. disclose, communicate, indicate what you learned. You don't need to filter it. You don't need to smooth it over. Just tell the truth. Give people the truth and be transparent of what happened. Number 2, compress the time between the amount of time between the deal close and the time the insights is gathered. What this means is when a deal closes, you need to sort of put it into the queue of your win-loss program so you can get insights. If we lose a deal in April and we don't learn about why we lost the deal until December, our ability to act on that, or in some cases even care that we lost the deal as a company, tends to dissipate. It's lower. So we want to compress that time frame between the time that a deal is lost or won and the time that we figure out why. Number 3, as a sales ops leader or sales ops professional, you want to start identifying trends across interviews and surveys. You're going to have lots of data points. And so you need to connect those dots. You need to provide the mosaic of what trends you're seeing across teams or industries so that people can say, hey, what's the difference between an isolated incident that was unlikely or has not been repeated versus things that happen over and over and are systemic and therefore are more easily able to be addressed and will yield more value when addressed. And that sort of goes to number 4, which is to connect the dots and identify implications and propose solutions. What I mean by this is, as a sales ops professional, you're going to see and learn what the interviews or the surveys of the reps and buyers have indicated to you. But, and this is important, you're also aware of what else is going on in the company and in the sales organization specifically that may have contributed to those trends. Maybe you've spun up a new team, maybe you've had a lot of attrition, or maybe there's been a product or a pricing change. And so for you to create value and strategic advice to your steering committee, you're going to want to say, hey, look, these are trends we're seeing from our win-loss program, that these are aligned with or supported by or likely caused by other things that are happening in the company that might be driving these. And so you want to connect the dots and identify implications. And then you can say, and here is how I think we should address these deficiencies as a company. So move from just telling them about the problem to diagnosing and proposing solutions. Number 5, automate sharing of deal-specific insights to the sales team. You sort of have 2 types of audiences with a win-loss program. The one that I've just talked about is sort of the overall, sort of the steering committee. You see trends across deals and you'll yield great insights from that. But on individual deals, insights are going to come up that are going to help a specific sales manager, a specific sales rep, or a specific product manager. And so you want to try to automate sending that insight to the sales rep and the leader or the product person as those deals come in. So you don't have to hold them for 3 months until that you synthesize things. Give them anecdotal feedback, share that, forward the report, automate the distribution of the insights, et cetera. Number 6, this is sometimes hard for some sales ops professionals. We don't want to just send reports and say, hey, take a look at this. It was really interesting. You should check out page 3. Periodically, could be quarterly, whatever. You want to sit down with your steering team and other stakeholders and walk them through stuff. Have the conversation, help them see things. Executives are busy. Sometimes they want to get to something, they'll forget, it will be lost in their inbox. You want to step up to the plate as a leader and walk them through what you are learning from the program, the proposed solutions, et cetera. Get their input, help them, let them help shape the direction of the program, but also figure out what you're going to do about these findings. And then the last thing that you might consider doing is, if action plans are put together based on win-loss program insights, why don't you own tracking the impact of those changes? What a great way for you to not only provide additional value to the steering committee and your company, but also be able to quantify the impact of your win-loss program. If you find the win rates go up or deal sizes expand, or this team in the Southeastern United States gets better because of this insight, you now have created the ROI profile to expand and improve and invest more in their program. And so that does a lot for the company and it does a lot for you in your career. So bottom line, you want to make sure that the insights from the program are both received and understood by the various stakeholders. A couple more things and we'll wrap up. You are invariably going to run into some obstacles in the sale in building a win-loss program. Sometimes your sales leadership is going to be indifferent or opposed at times to someone else sort of sticking their nose under the tent and getting their business. This is something that I personally experienced. It can be kind of disheartening, a little frustrating. Several ways to approach this, but the overall idea is try to understand the source of the objection. Many times, sales leaders and salespeople can feel threatened that someone else is going to sort of discover their craft or see that they're not perfect. And your relationship with the senior sales leader and your desire to help them win and to be better can help allay those fears, and just see if they will try to help them just get started. Once sales leaders get a hold of this and start to see how valuable it is, their tone can change. But if they haven't used win-loss programs before, or they might feel threatened, just be aware of sort of the emotional concerns or the fears they may have and try to work around them. Sometimes you as a team, you're not going to have enough budget to do this. This is a genuine concern. Sales ops and rev ops, we don't get as much budget as the sales leaders for incentives and things like that. But I would say start small with 5 or 10 grand, probably with 5 grand, you can probably get started and get a handful of interviews and certainly some surveys done. So start small, show the value, and then ask for a little bit more. The other thing to think about is to look at your win rates and look at your deal sizes and do the math on how much of an increase in win rate would create enough margin or enough revenue to cover the cost of your program, and just sort of ladder it up one little piece at a time until you can get the budget that you need to have a more scalable ongoing program. A third obstacle is that the reality that revenue ops and sales ops people are chronically overworked, and you have fire drill stuff thrown at you all the time. And I have been there. It's a challenge, right? It's reality. One way to think about that is to, especially if you can get the budget, try a little bit of outsourcing. There are great firms, Closed is one. There are others. There are research providers. Your market research team might be able to help you on surveys. So be a little scrappy, but also think of outsourcing or getting help from other internal teams to get this initial project off the ground. Please don't feel like you need to take this entire thing on personally. There are great resources and skilled experts that can lighten your burden and help your program be more successful from the get-go, and really bring best practices to you that you might not have on your own, just based on your own experience. Lastly, there can be a bias. You'll see this out of the finance organization many times. They'll just say, why can't we do this ourselves? It'd be a lot less expensive to do this. And a couple of thoughts on this. Show them the slide or the questions that we talked about earlier in the discussion today about the simple multiple choice questions. The quality of the insights you will get on your own are going to be far less than those that you, if you engage at least some level of outside help. The second thing is to, and this is where on the bottom I say you have to be a little cunning. If some team or person in your company is very passionate about doing this on their own, let them try and have the product marketing team or whoever else says, oh yeah, we can do those interviews and we can do the surveys. Have them fit that into their full-time job for maybe a quarter or two. And as you try this experiment, just have some agreed on success objectives of how many interviews they'll do or how many surveys they'll send and analyze and report back on. In a quarter or two, they will be singing a different tune. The reason I say that is this actually, running a program actually takes a fair amount of work. This is not something you want to sort of do between 6 and 8 p.m. a couple of nights a month. It does require a fair amount of work to run this well. And so that's why getting some outside help will be really good. But you might have to let people learn that through the school of hard knocks for a quarter or two, and then they may be more receptive to helping you be successful and kind of executing this campaign, this program as you would like. Okay, let me just wrap up. We talked today about 5 keys to building an effective win-loss program. So the first one is to create a steering team. You need that executive level support and champions. Get your CRM data in order. You know where the bodies are buried there. I just challenge you to do what it takes to get the CRM data clean. You need to strategically pick deals to evaluate across that reflect your business mix and problem areas that your CRM data will pinpoint for you. You need to use a portfolio approach to extract truth, a mix of surveys internally and interviews done by internally or by outside experts can be used, but you will get the best information and the best truth if you do interviews with buyers by skilled experts. They will outperform your internal teams every single time. Lastly, when you get the insights from your program, don't stop there. Finish the job by taking these insights to and championing them and distributing them across the company to people that can act on them and that will care about them. And if you will do those 5 things, you will have an effective program and your company will be more successful, your sales organization will be more successful, and last but not least, you as a revenue or sales ops professional will be more successful and be seen as your strategic advisor and have more career opportunities. If there's questions that you have based on what I've covered today, there are a couple of resources for you to access. I'm sharing my contact information and LinkedIn profile address here. You're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn with questions or send me an email. Be happy to answer your questions. The other thing I'd highly recommend is the Close team has put together a wonderful group series of presentations and discussions on win-loss, rich content that you should read through and listen to and engage with. And I wish you the best in building an effective win-loss program. And I appreciate Close for putting this program together, the win-loss week, and wish you the best. Thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. I love the way you've talked about using win-loss for rev ops and sales ops to upgrade their career, like level up, become strategic. So this is great. I'm sure it's been very helpful for anybody in that position. And Austin's a genius when it comes to rev ops. So if you need help, reach out. He's there and willing. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.